Look at the weather.
It's beautiful here.
Non-stop rain.
Oh, man, it is a blazer out there.
It's cold and it's shivery.
It is cold.
Really coming down here.
I really enjoy your weather reports.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, we're talking weather in a whole new way. From historical events to what's coming up, plus weather news, science, safety, fun facts, and more.
I like where this is going.
This is Weather Weekly. Weather Weekly with Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey.
Episode number 83 of Weather Weekly. Good to be with you. I'm meteorologist Marcus Bailey with Wish TV in Indianapolis. Good to be with you here as we are rolling right along here, middle of the month of August. And boy, I tell you what, we have just flipped the switch and it has been quite refreshing over the last week or so, dialing back the humidity quite a bit. Temperatures have been wonderful. We've gotten a little bit of rain to kind of green things back up. Latest drought monitor update last Thursday. Still have some areas of central and western Indiana in abnormally dry conditions, and there is still some moderate drought far western counties of the state. But look, we are in far, far better shape than we were just a week and a half ago, or certainly 2 or 3 weeks ago. With a lot of the state that was under drought conditions, we have quickly turned things around. Still could use a little bit of rain as long as we can kind of get it intermittently around the area. Don't want to do too much all at one time here or several days, but if you can sporadically kind of get some rain in here, and we can just kind of hold near average in terms of rainfall, because that's what we've done up to, I believe I mentioned it on yesterday's newscast on Wish TV during the morning hours. We're about 110% of average over the last 30 days. So that's pretty close to where we should be, right, over the last 30 days. It goes to show you how much, what good just average rainfall can do. You don't have to completely make up for lost time if you can get it all in a decent amount of time here. So we're in much better shape here. Rolling through the middle of the month. It also helps that we're not talking about sweltering heat, which we can do for sure in the middle of August, typically known as the dog days of summer. But it's been far from it, really, for most of this month. So that's some good stuff. I got a short podcast, but an interesting one here, investigating some booms that were heard over the state of Utah this past weekend. Looks like we might have an answer to that. We'll talk about that next here on Weather Weekly.
Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. When it comes to what kind of romance you're into, you don't have to choose just one. Fancy a dalliance with a duke, or maybe a steamy billionaire. You could find a book boyfriend in the city and another one tearing it up on the hockey field. And if nothing on this earth satisfies, you can always find love in another realm. Discover modern rom-coms from authors like Lily Chu and Ali Hazelwood, the latest romantasy series from Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros, plus Regency favorites like Bridgerton and Outlander. And of course, all the really steamy stuff. Your first great love story is free when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
It is episode 83 of Weather Weekly. Good to be with you here for the middle of the month here. It's been pretty quiet, trying to look for things to talk about here. I thought this one was kind of pertinent. Now, this did not happen locally, but we've had some instances that I can remember over the last probably couple of months that can somewhat relate. I guess this isn't necessarily weather related, but the Weather Service kind of got involved in it, so it did happen to end up being kind of somewhat weather related. And look, as being the meteorologist, one of 6 that we have here on staff, we are often called to be the station scientists, not necessarily just relating to meteorology, but all things science. A lot of times newsrooms will come to us about earthquakes and that kind of stuff, space weather things. And that's what this relates to. So here's the story here. All right. And I am going to have some audio for you. So I'm going to try to get fancy here a little bit. But reading an article coming off the Washington Post that was dated on the 15th. It was updated by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Over the weekend, there were many in Salt Lake City, Utah, that heard a loud boom. So they didn't know, was that construction? Was it military testing? Was it an earthquake? So not sure. Now, after hearing the explosion, Utah governor jumped on Twitter and immediately pointed out that he had talked to staff and that all signs looked like it was a meteor that created it. Now, obviously, we live in an era where many of you have video cameras at your home, whether it be you hang it up over your garage. Ring doorbell cameras are extremely popular, obviously, or just doorbell cameras in general. And they also can pick up audio along with videos. So this particular video came from Darren Boegweg. Sorry if I butchered your name, Darren. And this is what it sounded like coming off of his Ring doorbell. So there it was. Kind of, I mean, obviously, you know, those aren't the best quality speakers to record. I'll play it again. I think I missed it. Kind of has that thunder feel, does it not? At least from that sound. Again, not the best, but here's the thing: the video shows kind of a partly to mostly cloudy sky. So, you know, if you're somewhat paying attention, you look outside and you hear a sound like that, and you know, assuming that, just knowing because I own a doorbell camera, that sort of sound it wouldn't have been something that was off in the distance. That would have been a real loud boom that would have felt like it was right overhead of where I lived. So then looking outside, reasoning would tell me, okay, that definitely wasn't thunder if it's under a partly cloudy sky. It looked like it happened kind of somewhat in the morning too. So kind of tough to tell, but from judging from some of the satellite data from that morning, that didn't look like there was any rain activity really anywhere close to Salt Lake City. So immediately, you know, some people, if they felt the shake, may have thought it was an earthquake. So many went to the University of Utah Seismograph Station. That's UUSS Quake, at UUSS Quake on Twitter. And they immediately posted it on August 13th, 8:32 a.m. local time. We've received many reports of people feeling or hearing a boom. We can confirm that it was not an earthquake. So either did not register or did not register to what typically would be known as an earthquake there. So you can take that out of the equation, then you can take thunderstorms out of the equation. So the Weather Service actually steps in. There is a Salt Lake City Weather Service office, and they posted on Twitter, bolstering the meteor theory for this morning's boom in Utah. They put two reddish little polygons on their satellite map. So obviously I can't show you this on a podcast, but just take my word for it. So what I see on Salt Lake City's NWS Twitter page is a view of satellite and radar. And then they have two areas that are highlighted here. And what they say is this comes from Go17. They put lightning mapper on, but it's not associated with evidence of thunderstorm activity in satellite or radar. So it was showing a flash, but it wasn't associated with a thunderstorm. So lightning, while can happen in, not associated with rain, it is a little bit more rare. So just kind of deducing from what they had in Ground Truth, that kind of thing, the evidence obviously showed up that it was a meteor, which kind of neat because obviously Go 16, Go 17, if you're a weather nerd, not old technology. This is relatively newer technology of these newer satellites that have been going up between the last 5 to 10 years here, replacing some of the old satellites that we used to use. And now, there's so many different channels that you can kind of look at certain things. You can look at fog, you can look at lightning, like I just mentioned. And now they know that you can actually pick up maybe some streaks of light that are coming from exploding meteors coming through. So that's pretty neat. It was also confirmed that there were, I believe, the Twitter account Snow Basin Resort. That's, I'm assuming, a ski resort in Utah. Actually had pretty concrete evidence of the flash, the fireball that went through Utah Saturday morning. So that kind of confirmed it. So it all kind of got pieced together there. But again, this happens, and I think it gets reported a lot more now, partially because of so many more people have video cameras. So it's a lot easier for people to go back, and depending on your sensitivity, if you got a good boomer like they had over the weekend, it may actually trigger the sensitivity on your doorbell camera. Again, just depending on how sensitive your settings are to that. So there was a lot of people that were able to kind of check that. Obviously, too, if you can. Not everybody has things that save immediately to the cloud or to your phone or whatever. But this individual that posted yesterday or over the weekend obviously could go back pretty quickly and find that spot there. So I thought it was pretty fascinating. But the Washington Post actually did put a neat little article too about another fireball that happened in kind of the same area back in 1972. It almost fell on the exact date, the anniversary, the 50th anniversary, and what they called the Great Daylight Fireball. And what was interesting about this, what we ended up having was a meteor. It broke into the atmosphere. It's basically a sonic boom, right? And it just basically ends up turning to maybe just a small rock that ends up hitting the surface once it kind of burns up through our atmosphere. What was interesting about the one that happened 50 years ago, it entered the Earth's atmosphere at a very shallow angle. And so because of that, it more so just kind of rode along the atmosphere and ended up bouncing, and it was able to avoid the Earth's gravity to fall to the ground. It was thought that it had about a diameter of 10 meters. And what's also interesting, it has not been picked up since. So, if it was a decent sized rock, it probably had some sort of trajectory that it was on, like many things in space that it orbits around. But obviously, if it's bouncing off the Earth's atmosphere now on a completely different trajectory that it was set on, 50 years ago. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It was also seen from Utah and traveled all the way up into Canada before it re-entered space. So that's also very unusual as well, because a lot of these meteors that we may end up getting, reports are relatively localized. Now, I'll give you an example. We've had a couple I can remember in recent memory over the last couple of months in central Indiana, mainly have been in western Indiana, where a lot of our reports have come from, say around the Crawfordsville area. So that's west of Indianapolis. Those are not familiar with the state, but those reports really span from almost eastern Iowa, certainly central and southern Illinois, even parts of northern Indiana and eastern Indiana could see that. So when I say localized, I mean, a little bit closer. You're not talking about that hundreds of mile scale, but certain states, several states can see some of these things lighting up at the same time. Now, just to kind of solidify that whole theory of it being a meteor, and obviously we have a lot of visual as evidence, but then if you really knew what was kind of going on over the past week, it completely makes sense. So one of the more active and visible meteor showers that happens annually for our planet is the Perseid meteor shower. That was hitting its peak over the weekend. All right. So that it was a little bit diminished this year because it also fell in line with a full moon. So even when you're kind of away from light pollution in cities, if you're out in rural areas, there was a pretty bright full moon. So it diminished some of the viewing of the meteor shower in itself. But the Perseids come from the comet Swift-Tuttle, which the Earth passes through kind of the trail of that once a year, usually in the middle of August. So this year's peak dates were August 11th and 12th. So when you don't have that full moon light pollution, at best, when you're in some of those outlying areas, like I said, in big outburst years, you can see as many as 150 to 200 meteors per hour. Now, they're not as big as what, most of them are not as big as what they experienced out in Utah when you can get that sonic boom there. But you can see several hundreds of light streaks there, tens and even hundreds of light streaks when you get into the peak of the Perseids. And you don't get the light pollution. Again, this year was a little bit unfortunate because of the full moon. Just again, and this is according to space.com, most of the Perseids are tiny, about the size of a grain of sand. But and some of them hit the ground, but most don't. They all just kind of burn up. But it just goes to show that, just even a little bit can cause some pretty lights that can decorate the sky. But I thought that was interesting. And something certainly that we can get from time to time here in central Indiana when you can get some of these booms, or just more so it hasn't been booms, it's flashes of light, real bright flashes of light that happen during the overnight hours and often caused by meteors. So there you go. We're going to take a look at the rest of the week forecast and kind of take a peek ahead at the end of the month of August. That's coming up next here on Weather Weekly. Here's a look at the forecast for the week of August 15th, 2022. Not a bad one here. Middle of the week especially looking wonderful. Highs around 80 through Wednesday. Lots of sunshine, low humidity. And I think we're going to stay pretty quiet all the way through the end of this upcoming work week here. Thursday and Friday, just a slight warm up as we get more of a southerly flow. I've got highs in the mid 80s for Thursday and Friday. Humidity may dial up just a bit, but not overly oppressive. So not in bad shape here for the end of the week. We do have a cold front approaching. It is week number 1 of high school football. Can you believe that? Wow, man, that just snuck up pretty quickly, right? Week number 1 of high school football. Friday night, I think right now we're probably going to be in pretty good shape. But we do have a cold front that's going to be moving through over the weekend, and that can bring some scattered showers and thunderstorms to the area Saturday and Sunday. I don't think it's a complete wash at this point, but if you do have some outdoor interests, something to keep in mind for both Saturday and Sunday. We may linger that chance on into Monday as well, and numbers are going to be slightly below average, kind of hovering over the low to mid 80s. So not a bad thing here. 8 to 14 day outlook, below average temperatures, pretty strong signal for it. And it looks like we might be getting some hints of a bit more activity for the back half of the month of August, where we may see a decent shot for above average precipitation. And again, if you can go slightly above average and you can kind of get it intermittently, that's not going to be a bad thing. That'll just kind of help to kind of keep things going here and keep us out of trouble, since we're still kind of considered abnormally dry in some spots. So that can go to help as we gear up now. We're getting close to the end of summer, and we are just knocking on the door of harvest season for many of the farmers here over the next month or so. So I'm sure the rainfall, at least now, will be greatly appreciated, and then kind of dry things out as we get to work out in the fields here over the next several weeks. Thank you so much for joining us here for this episode of Weather Weekly. We always love to hear your feedback. If you got an idea or on a subject matter that you'd like us to cover here, you can shoot me an email anytime, marcus.bailey@wishtv.com, or you can hit me up on social media, Marcus Bailey Weather on Facebook and at Marcus Bailey on Twitter and Instagram as well. Make sure while you're here to check out all the other great podcasts, all part of the All Indiana Podcast Network. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week, and God bless.
Discover more from Storm Track 8 Weather and Wish TV. Online at wishtv.com, and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook. Plus, be sure to check out more great podcasts from the All Indiana Podcast Network now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.